Hello and welcome to another episode of Myths and Stories, a Destiny 2 lore podcast. We are continuing our history of the Eliksni. This will be part 4 tonight. Last time we had left off with the introduction of Mithrax and his meeting of Sheer Ido and Ido. As well as our Guardian's systematic dismantling of most of the fallen houses in Destiny 1, and the House of Wolves uprising leading to the capture and eventual death of Skolas. And we ended that reading with Varix kind of ruminating on the fate of his people and wanting more for the Eliksni, and how much they were really living up to the name of Fallen. And we hinted, and there were hints from Skolas as well, that something dark was on the horizon.
Yeah. Dude, I still can't get over how much we just kicked the shit out of them. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. I think we're a little bit of the baddies to the Fallen. Like, to the Cabal, I kind of expect, like, they're like the warring race. Like, that's it. I don't feel as bad taking out a few Cabal leaders. But for some reason, like, now I look at Fallen and I'm just like, you poor guys. I don't even want to do a lost sector with you guys. You know what? Just keep your captains, keep your guy. It's fine. I'll just sit on the side over here. We really did decimate them. We really did just dismantle multiple houses. And even more than like, because like with Mara just did the one, right? She just did wolves,
right?
And she did a pretty damn good job of it. But then, like, we took down like 5 or 6 different houses, just one at a time, just like, boop, that's gone, boop, that's gone, Baron's gone, Archon's gone, Kel's gone, Servitor's gone, bye-bye. Like, what the heck? Gosh, man, okay. Whew. Getting a little emotional already.
We left the fallen houses in a real bad state by the end of the House of Wolves DLC, especially.
Well, and that's like with Varix there at the end, that and we talked about it a little bit last time, like his feeling, like just looking at his house, or just not his house, looking at his entire race, looking at the entire Eliksni people and going, are we just destined for failure? Like, are we like, is this our lot in life? Like, are we supposed to be fallen? Are we supposed to be just this nothing people? And it makes me feel for him a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, especially for Varix, who was of House Judgment during their golden age. And that's another thing that we've talked about a little bit here and there, but just to reiterate, like, Eliksni seem to be practically immortal if something, if an outside source doesn't kill them.
Why is every race in freaking Destiny immortal? Like the Cabal, they live for thousands of years. Hive, okay, I'll give you that one. Hive as Krill were not immortal.
No.
But now they kind of are. And then Fallen, living from the Golden Age all the way to now. Like, and then of course Guardians, like
yeah.
Our immortality is kind of like a questionable thing. Like, we're not really immortal, but we kind of are. So yeah.
Yeah,
and then the Awoken. Like, the Awoken are they technically still? I know they're not immortal. Like, they are mortal. They just live forever.
Yeah, we still don't quite know everything about the Awoken in that sense. I don't know that the Awoken know everything about themselves in that sense.
They're still shooting each other with neutrino particles, going, "Hey, I wonder what this does."
They're making Asher proud.
They are. They are. I miss you, Asher. Please come back to us. But Fallen.
But so, from Varix's point of view, this is someone that lived during the highest time in fallen history with the greatest version of their society and watched it all crumble and his people flee and be split apart and resort to, you know, barbaristic piratism between each other before arriving in the system, having the elation that they had found the traveler immediately dashed by the realization that it had picked someone else. And it was a race that they deemed weaker than them, and which we were physically. And to see them turn into these just bitter, vicious, greedy scavengers, and to have lived through all of that, and at the end of the day to have Skolas, who at the time, although it was for malicious means, had attempted to try and unite all of the Eliksni again under his own banner, and to have that kind of final plea dashed, and Varix just is kind of sitting there and going like, why do none of my people want to aspire to the greatness we came from? Why do all of my people just want to aspire to punish humanity, to take things rather than try to return ourselves to what we once were?
I mean, what do you do when your prophecy has failed? Like that was Skolas was the prophesized. Like, now granted he did a little bit himself, like he kind of proclaimed himself Kell of Kells, but still, like that was the prophecy of their people, to have a Kell of Kell, to have a united people again. And like you said, to see that entire thing just dashed like it was nothing. That's gotta be hard.
So I wish I could say things got better.
Oh, God. Well, and before we continue on with the story, I got one last question about timeline, because that's me, I always like to try to figure out where things were throughout Destiny history, and I don't know that this is an answerable question. I think I might have asked it before. When the Eliksni got to Sol, were there already guardians? Like, had the traveler already, I'm going to put this in quotation marks, died and thrown out the ghost?
Yes.
Okay. I was just wanting to make sure that portion of history had happened. Like,
yep.
So when they show up, they didn't show up in the middle of our golden age going, "What the hell, traveler?" They showed up a post golden age, possibly post collapse or mid collapse.
Yeah, the Eliksni are referenced as showing up post collapse, so it would have been during the Dark Ages with warlords and risen, not yet guardians.
Yep. Okay, perfect. I was trying to figure out exactly when that was, so I can kind of get like a state of mind for the Eliksni people, having stumbled across this traveler that was everything to them, the great machine. Like, this gave us the light, this gave us everything, and then to show up and have it, like you said, it had chosen an entire race, an entire another species, and for the Eliksni to look at that and go, "What the hell, man?"
Right. Yeah. But so the next major event that happens in the Destiny universe is the Taken King expansion. Now, the Taken King expansion was excellent, but not only did it mean things for us, it also meant things for the remaining Eliksni of the various houses. Some of those houses, this is a year, maybe two, after the end of the House of Wolves expansion.
Yeah, about a year.
So, and it's usually implied that, if it takes a year for an expansion to come out, generally speaking, you can say that about a year of time has passed in game is usually how it works.
Yeah.
So the Eliksni have had about a year at this point of, really no major Guardian, incursions or strikes against them, mostly because they just weren't considered a threat anymore. There wasn't a need to really go after the houses with any sense of vigor, because there wasn't much left.
They weren't planning no battle at six fronts or anything.
Right. So we had been more or less leaving them to their own devices, pushing them back when with the little roves or little parts of houses that maybe encroached on Guardian territory, but no major offensive. And then Oryx rolled into the system, and everything changed for everybody.
Oh my God, it did.
Now the Eliksni, we're not impacted in the same grandiose way that, say, the Awoken were, where we got a cutscene where the whole fleet was wiped out and destabilized the reef and all those things, which it did. But for the Eliksni, they suffered just as much as the Awoken, kind of off screen. So over that year, the remaining houses had a chance to try and at least triage themselves. Most of them were leaderless. A few of them were gone completely. But the big ones, Wolves was gone, but Devils was still around. It, it had figured out its power vacuum. Internal struggles had resolved themselves. Leaders had been chosen and had risen through the ranks in various ways. House of Kings, actually relatively untouched by us. We did defeat, I believe it was a Baron of House of Kings, but Kings was very elusive. They really didn't want to be discovered, and they never really went on the offensive themselves unless they had a bunch of support, as in the Battle of Twilight Gap.
Sure, where they have like full spider tank and artillery support and stuff like that to attack something. Because each of these houses, they still aren't very. I mean, I guess they have military might as a necessity to protect themselves. It's not a full on like house. It's not a full on House of Stone that's happening, right? Like it's not this like full grandiose military with a navy, an army, an air force, and marines. Like it's just kind of like what they need to not die and not like get killed off by anything that comes and attacks them, be it Cabal, Hive, or us.
Yeah, their entire race has become militant just in the fact that if you weren't, you died. Like they don't have they don't have a role in their society anymore for somebody that is not useful in perpetuating their survival. They don't have arts anymore. They don't have.
Oh, I didn't even think of that.
They don't have someone that's making fine garments for them anymore. It's can you?
Oh, that's right. All the weavers and stuff. Yeah.
Right. It comes down to, can you build weapons and machines? Can you shoot guns? Can you stab things? Like if you have one of those three, cool, we can find a spot for you. If you can't do any of that, short of, I guess, maybe taking care of Smallin, there's not a use for you.
Holy cow. That's a very finite way of life.
Yes. So these houses had stabilized to a degree. They'd had a year of, more or less inaction to do it. And Oryx, when he rolled through the solar system and the Guardian had their first encounter with the Shadow of Oryx and the Taken, there were fallen among his Taken.
Oh, that's right. On Phobos, when we went, dude, I didn't even think of that. So he had to have already come across Fallen and taken them.
Exactly.
Holy shit.
Now, you could argue maybe some of those are from the Whirlwind, his initial attack on Reese, which is certainly possible.
Oh my God. Can you imagine if some of those are House Stone?
Maybe so.
Oh my God.
But at least a few of them came from the Sol system due to their names. Named enemies you can look up, and in some cases they're referenced elsewhere as being part of an Eliksni house. And so from that information, we know that Oryx took over, in both senses of the word, the largest standing strongholds of both the House of Devils and the House of Kings when he invaded the Sol system.
Just walk through them like they were nothing.
Yeah. I mean, he was the Taken King at the height of his power. A fallen house ain't doing anything.
Ain't doing nothing.
The Kell of Kings and the Archon of Devils escaped those attacks. But I would say about half of their house did not. Were turned into Taken, as well as the remaining members of House of Wolves. The remaining leadership of House of Wolves was taken and then subsequently killed by the Guardian in the I think it was the second or third mission of Taken King, where we killed the Taken version of the House of Wolves like barons that remained.
Gotcha. Does that include the Shadowfang?
No, actually. They presumably escaped because,
okay,
they're tricksy assassins. They got away.
That's
because they show up later down the road as, not taken
as not
combatants.
Taken, yeah. Okay.
During this time, House of Exile was presumably wiped out completely because it never shows up in the lore again, and
never even referenced again.
And House of Exile was also based on the moon, which
I think Oryx has a little bit of beef with things on the moon,
just a bit,
that aren't Hive. Yeah,
just a bit. So Devils and Kings take a big hit. House of Winter, though, sees the carnage of the first of the battle between the Reef and Oryx as an advantage. House of Winter has stayed away from Oryx up till this point and sees, okay, the Queen is gone. Most of the Reef's fleets have been obliterated. This is the weakest the Reef has ever been. And so House of Winter takes advantage of this weakened state, and they invade the Prison of Elders and manage to free an Archon. However, in classic fashion, that Archon is then taken shortly after it's been freed.
Shit. Is that the Taken Reprieve strike?
Yes, this is the Taken version of the Winter Archon strike.
These poor guys, like, hey, we got an Archon, let's go build us a servitor, and Oryx is just like, nope.
He's mine now. And then the Guardians come in and just kill it again.
And then we just go kill it. Like, that's the messed up part. Is that we just come in afterward and we just go kill it. Like, these poor guys, they can't catch a break.
Now, they're not the only ones that try to take advantage of the chaos of the Taken War, though. The remaining members of House of Devils, specifically a splinter group of House of Devils, which we will learn more about a little bit later tonight, they decide, okay, we're in real dire straits. A lot of our house has been, has been removed from the chessboard, a la Oryx. We need to get an advantage back because our numbers are low. And so House of Devils makes a concerted attack on one of Rasputin's bunkers that they had identified in the Cosmodrome. So House of Wolves attacks this bunker in an attempt to try to take control of the either Rasputin or at the very least the Warsats, and use them as weapons.
Exactly. That would be the play, right? Is to find whatever, like, the Warsats are probably the most powerful thing uh, in the solar system. That is a man-made thing. That is I hesitate to say controllable thing, because obviously Rasputin still has control of it, but I guess in the Eliksni mind, they're like,
Yeah,
well, if we can take this bunker, we have access to whatever server stacks, whatever we have there to take control of these things, and now we have Warsats on our side. Now we can start unleashing hell.
exactly. And can you imagine if the Fallen were able to start raining Warsats down on the city or something?
Oh my god. Oh my god.
It would be a game changer, big time for them.
Absolute chaos.
And Rasputin knows this is a bad thing, knows this is not going to go well if they end up getting any control over his systems. So Rasputin sends out a distress signal to the Vanguard, who then send a strike team to the location. That strike team usually includes us, clears out the devils, including an experimental shank called Saber 2. Who had been created by a newly appointed Devil Archon named Axis.
Oh, I think I know this name.
We'll remember it because it's going to come up again.
I won't spoil it this time, I promise, but I think I remember this name. But yeah, so that shanks there, or shanks, a shack spliced with a shank. It's a shanks now. No, that shank is just a super powered shank. Like is that the first time we see a shank like that? Like,
yeah, that's the first time we see a heavy shank.
Yeah, like fully like armored up, got tons of guns. Like this isn't just a little red bar. Like, boop, you're dead. This is a big guy.
Yeah,
and we have that specific strike in D2 as well. And like we described with the Devil's Lair strike in D2, it's like we are reliving that event. Like, that event was a canonic event that happened, that, like what you said, the Vanguard called in a strike team, we came in, cleared it out, and saved the day. Basically, gave the bunker back to Rasputin. As much as we think that the Eliksni took it from him, he probably still had full control over it. But Rasputin take it back over, and then gather loot, go home. That canonically happened, and then we get to relive it as the Fallen Saber Strike in D2.
Yep. So the Taken War ends. Guardians are victorious over Oryx, and in the kind of the nebulous state that things are in a post-Oryx world, the security systems are in tatters across the solar system. Because Oryx's presence drew in, the Hive to him, drew in the Cabal to try and understand and beat back Oryx. Clearly was a heavy blow to the Eliksni, just for Oryx conscripting members of houses to his taken army. Things are in tatters everywhere.
He definitely had a severe presence and influence on the Sol system across every race and being that was here.
Absolutely. And in a last ditch effort, the few remaining members of House of Wolves rally under a newly appointed Archon named Keldar, who had rebuilt Orbitus Prime, which was an old Wolf Prime servitor. And the House attempts to take over Mars outpost that had previously belonged to the Cabal, that the Cabal had essentially just left a skeleton crew at, because their main forces were assisting in the Taken War with the Cabal units that were trying to invade the Dreadnought.
Right, because Phobos was the first so Phobos, the moon of Mars, was the first place that we go to because we hear, at least in the Taken King, we hear a distress call from there, so we go there and investigate, and it's just completely decimated. There's hardly any forces. You get to the end, and boom, take a big old shadow Oryx pops up and is like ha 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 ha, and then Taken just start pouring into the place. It was absolutely a trap set for us, the Guardian, to lure us in and try to kill us. We barely escape out of there. But the fact that Phobos was like the main operating base for the Cabal at the time, for the Sol system, and for that entire base to just completely decimated, and then like what you said with the Cabal, their answer to the Dreadnought was to slam a ship into it. They're like, hey, here's a giant ship. Let's go make a beachhead by just slamming an entire ship into it, and then we'll make our own beachhead. Yay us! So yeah, the Cabal are they. I don't want to say they're dumb, but
they're very single-minded.
They are very single-minded. I like that. Drifter says it best during the Halloween season right now, where he's like, all they care about is guns and the size of their tusks. Yeah, that's
yeah. So trying to take advantage of this, knowing that they are a very weakened house, but they have this glimmer of hope now with this Archon who has accomplished rebuilding a prime servitor, rebuilding a big servitor. So like Sepix. They're like, okay, we have some leadership. Our house is small, but if we can get resources, we can, start rebuilding. And we know that there are a lot of Cabal resources in these these Mars outposts that have recently been abandoned or nearly abandoned. So we're going to try and go take those. However, this is House Wolves, or the remnants of House of Wolves. Petra and Varix still have an ear to the ground on anything wolf related. And they learn that House of Wolves is planning this takeover. And they reach out to the player guardian for assistance with removing the threat. And this is a story mission that we play post end of the Taken King kind of campaign. And the Guardian goes back to these Mars outposts. I think it is Phobos, or if not, it's one of the mainland Mars outposts. And essentially does what they do best and walks through the remaining members of House of Wolves, killing both the Servitor and the newly appointed Archon, truly destroying House of Wolves for good.
So another house just completely obliterated now. So we're literally down to like probably about 3 houses now. If we want to count Judgment.
That's true. Well, Judgment is 1.
Hey, it only takes 1.
I suppose so, but so right now the only ones that are canonically still going are the House of Devils, the House of Kings, and House of Winter. House of Winter and then House of Judgment. So there's 4 houses, you could say.
I'll split it with you and say there's 3 and a dude.
That is accurate, yes. There's 3 and a dude houses.
Yes. So Taken King happens. We just, we do what we do. We do. The final mission of Taken King is called Regicide, and I think that's such a fitting. We are God killers. We go and kill Oryx. I don't know whether to call him a self-appointed god or a anointed god or whatever. Like Oryx was insanely powerful, and we kill him fairly. I don't want to say fairly easy. We kill him in the story mission, and then we go into a raid and we take a 6-man team in there, and then we kill him. Like we full on, he's dead, and Yeah, he's and then we kill like what Taken versions of him. Like he has all these little Taken shadows all over
Yeah, he
the
has his
system. Those are a bunch of
echoes.
posts. Yeah, we go
Yep.
through the solar system, clean all those up like it's nothing. Like we really are that powerful. So to think of us as being that powerful and to just keep wiping out these houses of fallen to just stop them from any type of uprising or rebellion or consolidation or anything, it's not that far fetched to think of us, the player guardian, to be able to do that.
Yeah, like honestly, there's the story bit we get during season of the Splicer regarding Saint and Saint's crusades and
Right.
how he became this boogeyman for the fallen as he hunted them down post the Battle of Twilight Gap. And while yes, he did a lot of killing during that time, I wonder if it wouldn't be accurate to say that the Guardian should also be kind of held in the same fear, the same regard as the Saint.
Absolutely. We are just the VIP 2014. That's all we are. we're not, I don't know, the boogeyman of the Saint. Like they don't even call him Saint 14. They're boogie. And like you said in Splicer, there's that cutscene where Mithras is explaining it and saying we tell stories of the Saint to our younglings to get them to behave. Like he is literally the boogeyman to them. But we definitely had the same, if not more, level of impact on their people, that it's weird that they don't have like the VIP 2014 boogeyman thing. Like it's that is a little odd.
I guess maybe we didn't do it with the same kind of emotion tied to it.
I was gonna say his was very anger driven. His was very like he was pissed. He was genuinely like, how dare you try to take out my place of living? Like, how dare you invade my space? And then went on the rampage. Whereas like we're just kind of like, hey, there's an Archon over here trying to rise up. Maybe go kill him. And we're like, all right, cool. Hey, there's a servitor prime thing over there. Maybe go kill that too. All right, sweet. Anything else? Yeah, there's a couple barons. You want to knock them out while you're out there? Yeah, sure. Why not? I'm free on Tuesday. Let's go. So yeah, ours is very much a mission driven. Like, hey, do this as the Vanguard. Do this as a Guardian. Whereas Saints was very much a.
His was
I'm
revenge.
just going to go out. Absolutely.
So, as you might imagine, though, the fallen houses now, the Eliksni that remain, are desperate to try and find any kind of advantage that they can. And they get some time to do it. Again, a significant amount of time passes in-game between the end of Taken King and the beginning of the Age of Triumph, which is the next kind of major history point for the Eliksni.
About another year.
I think it is. I think it's about a year. And in that time period, the House of Devils, specifically the Archon of House Devils that we had a run-in with his experimental shank before, this Archon Axis, he leads a kind of a splinter sect of the House of Devils that call themselves Splicers or Devil Splicers.
Just like the old school, like back on Splicers, like these technologically advanced, not technologically advanced, but definitely technologically smart, savvy, technologically savvy group that are able to use. I guess during the time of the Golden Age, it was more of like channeling light and channeling powers using their Splicer gauntlets. But they're definitely they are a technical budget group.
Yeah, and I think the big difference here is that when you hear Mithrax talk about being a splicer, he very specifically refers to it as a sacred splicer. He is a sacred
Yeah.
splicer. And that is, I think, in the golden age, the Eliksni golden age sense of you are using technology to interface with the light to accomplish
Yeah.
something. And the Devil Splicers seem to still have a great, a great understanding and capability with technology, but their creed, their motivations are a little different. They seem to follow the idea of technology to give us an advantage at all cost. Not
Like
necessarily,
augments and shit.
yes, not necessarily to find an understanding or to use technology to channel something. It is to use technology to enhance themselves. So I guess you can think of where Sacred Splicer is very, from the inside looking out. Theirs is the opposite, is the outside looking in. They're trying to empower themselves, whereas splicers are trying to empower other things. Sacred splicers are trying to
Interesting.
empower other things. And so these devil splicers, led by Axis, spend this year of downtime bolstering their numbers and searching for any kind of advantage, any kind of golden age technology that will give them a chance to keep surviving. Because now the Eliksni are not only worried about the Guardians, but their numbers are painfully low, and they are clearly there are other things in the solar system or outside the solar system that are just as much of a threat as the things inside the solar system. So they're desperately looking for anything to give them some form of power. And they find it in the form of a golden age technology called SIVA within the plague lands of the Cosmodrome.
I've always loved the idea of SIVA, like this nanite technology that could do anything, fully programmable. It reminds me of for like a visual reference in Stargate, the replicators. Like that's what it makes me think of, is like it is constantly. I don't know if it can learn. I feel like it can. Maybe it can, maybe it can't. I don't know. But everything that I've ever read and looked at about SIVA is it is just the epitome of technology. Nanotechnology that can replicate, that can be programmable. It can build things, it can synthesize things, it can, like it is everything. When all the Exodus ships took off from Earth, they all had SIVA with them. They all had the SIVA tech with them to help them build colonies and stuff. And like SIVA was one of the big three, right? Like that's you had of the Brays. So you had Clovis and his whole idea of exos. Exos are the future. Then you had Anna with her idea of the war mind. The war mind is the protector. That he will guide us. He will help us. He will help us down the road. He'll help us in the future. And then you had Wilhelmina, Willa, who was another Bray, that she was like, no, SIVA tech. This is the stuff that's going to lead us to the future. This is the future of humanity, is SIVA tech. So again, all the Brays are. I hesitate to call them geniuses, but they kind of are. Some of them a little more crazy than others,
Yeah.
namely Clovis. But yeah, to SIVA tech is. I truly think of SIVA tech as the pinnacle of, I think, programmable nanites that can do anything essentially. that's the pinnacle of human technology, in my opinion.
Yeah, and they were very at for the creation of SIVA, it was very well intentioned. It was, like you said, it was meant to be a form of building things for new colonies. It was meant to be you had your SIVA pod or whatever it was transported in, and when you arrived where you were going, you just programmed SIVA to start building houses, and it could
Yep.
form houses out of itself and the matter around it. It was meant to manipulate, the matter that was there and enhance it in such a way that would be advantageous for colonies. So very, road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Yeah. I like that one.
It was a very altruistic use case until it was, the realization that anything that can be used to build a house out of nothing can also build a weapon out of nothing.
That's always the fear with any type of technological advance or scientific advance is, how can this be militarized? How can this be weaponized? And that's like, yeah, SIVA is hell, the Warmind, the Exos, all of these things were at some point in time weaponized and militarized. So it's an unfortunate. Say that one again. The road to hell.
The road to hell is paved with good intentions.
I like that one. I'm keeping that one. That one's going in the box, and I'm keeping it.
Well, there you go. I am by no means the creator of that. I've heard it many places, but
I like that one though.
So, as you might expect, when the fallen Devil Splicers come upon this wondrous material called SIVA, which had its programming tweaked even before they got to it, they set about figuring out, how do we use this to our advantage? How do we make this into something that will make us powerful? And what they end up landing on, actually, is they kind of go full cyberpunk with it.
Yeah.
And in that, they start to enhance themselves with SIVA. They implant SIVA within their own bodies to give them cybernetic limbs, guns and armaments that can be a part of their body or grow out of their bodies.
Yeah.
And in the case of their Archon, Axis, he buys in so much to this idea that he becomes a full cyborg. There is no more organic matter, perhaps outside of like a brain.
Like General Grievous, where like he's more machine now than man. I guess that's they're talking more Darth Vader there, but yeah, like General Grievous though, like there's not much organic left of Grievous. But yeah.
Or for anyone that has recently watched the Cyberpunk Edge Runners, think Atom Smasher. Same kind of thing. There you
go. Yeah.
And the Devils learn through their discovery of SIVA and messing with it and trying to find more information about it. They learn that there's a link between the Iron Lords and SIVA. And so they decide, well, clearly if the Iron Lords were caught up in SIVA at some point, they must have information about it. Maybe they know how to utilize it in ways that we haven't discovered yet. And so they organize an attempted assault on the Iron Temple on Fellwinter's Peak to try and gain access to the temple, and they assume gain access to any information that's in the temple about how better to use SIVA.
Oh man, I remember this mission very vividly. Like you're in the you're climbing, you're going up this wintry peak, right? And then like halfway up, you get in this little like tram cart, and you're riding the tram cart up. And you get to the very top, and when you get up there, something appears, and you're like, "What the hell? We killed that." And it's one of the servitors. It's Sepix, isn't it?
Yep.
The old House Devil servitor that we killed way back in Devil's Lair, and there it is right in front of us, fully functional, it's all SIVA'd up, and your ghost is even like, we killed that. Like, what the hell? And so when our guardian stumbles across this, it's a genuine, like, what are we dealing with moment.
Yeah, so we have the previous Sepix Prime, now named Sepix Perfected, who is radiating these SIVA nanites, and we're trying to fend them, we're trying to fight them off from being able to access the temple. And there are at first normal fallen, what we attribute to be like your typical Eliksni fallen. They don't appear to be enhanced in any way. It's just this servitor. And then near the end of the mission, you start to get these bioengineered, cybernetically enhanced versions of the fallen.
They're super freaky looking too. They're like their legs aren't like, they don't have feet. They look like little, like, I don't know, like they look like they're walking on like stilts or something.
Yeah.
Like they're really freaky looking. They have all these, like, obviously SIVA nanites are swarming them, and it's really freaky. It's got it looks like red veins running all over them, and like red muscle tissue, and but it's all SIVA. It's genuinely kind of off-putting. Like, I think that was Bungie's first foray into, like, let's do something freaky. And I guess things like Oryx and stuff like that were pretty scary, or even Crota might have been like a scary thing, but like we've seen them do horror really well lately, like with the Glycon, with the Leviathan, like they really dialed in their horror. But I think this was like their first little, like, hey, let's put something on the battlefield that looks like it should be scary, like you should be afraid of this thing.
Yeah, it was kind of their first dive into what I would call like body horror.
Yeah.
Just the horror of something, of a body, a form being misshapen and bulging in spots it shouldn't be, and pulsing.
Like their legs too. I keep remembering their legs, because like their legs even like kicked back. They had like a goat leg, right? Like it was a really and to see that on a bipedal thing, it was just freaky. It was really off-putting when you first come across them.
It really was. And we're, in the process of like trying to fight these things back, and eventually the mission ends with Lord Saladin stepping in to assist us in the defense of the temple, and we are successful in defending the temple, but we are not successful in defeating Sepix. Sepix is able to escape, and Saladin is very concerned by this, because he knows what SIVA is, because the Iron Lords have dealt with it before, even though our Guardian and presumably the Vanguard don't at this point. And he is very insistent of like, we need to track Sepix down and kill it. Because his thought process at the time is that this is still a small group of Fallen that have found this tech, and if we nip it in the bud, we don't have to worry about it spreading. Which isn't quite the case. But
open a can of SIVA nanites and see what happens.
Needless to say, he put us on the path of hunting down Sepix Perfected. And there was actually a reaction from somebody else about the news of Sepix. And we're going to see what Varix's thoughts were on this new development. This is in the D1 Grimoire Ghost Fragment Fallen 5. Varix gets some information about this, Sepix being resurrected, and just another glimpse into his thought process at the time. So that grimoire goes like this. Frozen on the monitor, was an image of Sepix Prime, the massive prime servitor that had been as a god to the House of Devils, where once its plating was pristine, carefully maintained by the Archon priest and his acolytes. It was now splotched with red growths. The ether power emanations that once glowed strong and pure were so obviously corrupted. Guardians had slain this god, and now it was reborn through SIVA. Varix of House Judgment sneered at the abomination. Golden Age project, yes, he clicked, turning to the crow. His field agent was a young, awoken woman. Technology of an old Earth, learned from the Great Machine. The Eliksni burbled to himself in mocking laughter and gestured with his lower hands. You do us proud. Go, speak with other crows. Learn more about these Devil Splicers. She nodded, a small smile on her face, and left the chamber. Varix allowed himself a moment of silent contemplation, looking at the now closed door to the information suite. As always, it was lit only by the light of the dozen or so monitors in the room. The fallen interlocked his upper hands. He bowed his head as he allowed himself to really feel the impact of the abomination on the screen. He never would have allowed anyone else to see this. But it hurt, seeing the horror that was Sepix made anew. His people had fallen. Varix stared at the image of Sepix, and as he'd done before, he wondered what could have gone differently had he been there among his people. Could he have stopped this before it happened? Could he have found them a better way? Must be a better way for Eliksni, he clicked quietly. Must be a way to stop the fall. And that's the end of that lore card.
He is just, man, he just wants to see his people brought back to their glory again. Back during their golden age on Reese. And he that thought of him looking at it and seeing this abomination, this on the one hand, and I guess I can see it from both sides. On the one hand, from the Devil Splicer side, they're like, look at this thing. This thing is awesome. It's back. It's fully functional and it's enhanced. We're gonna go fuck up some Guardians with it, and that's their whole thought. Is we're just gonna go kill Guardians. Whereas Varix, they could have seen it in any type of way. They could have been like, "This is our new golden age. We now have SIVA tech. We're gonna go rebuild Reese. We're gonna go leave." But their only thought is "Let's go kill Guardians." And for Varix to see it on that side and be like, "What an abomination! We truly deserve to be called fallen. We are fallen. We have fallen. That's." We as a people, I want to say have become extinct. I mean, at this point in time, it truly is. There is not much Eliksni left. I hesitate to say it, but Varix is possibly the only true Eliksni left, right? The people are called the Eliksni people. Their race is the Eliksni race. But when they get to the soul system, we start calling them fallen, and we're starting to see this more and more and more of they are truly fallen. And it's just, God, it's sad. It's genuinely sad.
It is.
To see a people fall that much into just how do we just get better at killing the thing over there, not bettering themselves, not trying to reunite their people, not trying to get enlightenment or anything. Just how do I kill that thing over there? How do I get more stuff to kill that thing over there and not get killed by the thing behind me? It's it's emotional. I might cry.
And it is. It's a it's a tough perspective to see, and it's it's a tough position for the character Varix to be in, where he's constantly seeing his people choose to burn their culture to the ground for the sake of maybe one more day of survival, or one more bit of power,
one more little victory. Like it, God.
So
makes me sad.
Drawing away from Varix for a moment, the Guardian has been tasked with tracking down Sepix Prime, or Sepix Perfected now. And they are successful in doing so in a reprised version of the Sepix Prime strike. And are able to confirm that, yes, SIVA is the technology that has been used to rebuild Sepix. And not only that, they can also confirm that House of Devils, or at least this section of House of Devils, these Splicers, they have SIVA and they have been using it. And it is out there now.
Yeah.
Kind of confirming Saladin's worst fears at this point.
There's no containing it at this point. Now
Right.
It's just a full on, like, we just have to deal with it. Like it's not this little, like, oh hey, it's only a few of them. No, it's big.
Yeah. So the Vanguard and Saladin now are working together. They start keeping start monitoring for any sign of SIVA usage or House Devils popping up elsewhere in the Sol system, other than the plague lands. So through those monitoring channels, they discover that there is a very well-respected splicer amongst the House Devils named Kovic. And Kovic has been found on the moon, specifically the Hellmouth. And they're not really sure what he's doing there. And they're very worried to know what he's doing there. So the Vanguard organize a strike team to invade the Hellmouth and find Kovic, find out what he's doing, and put a stop to it, because it's probably bad.
It's probably bad. I like that. There's no other reason to go, it's probably bad. We don't know what he's doing, but just assume it's bad.
Lo and behold, what he's doing is trying to graft SIVA onto hive ogres. So it's bad.
I remember this. I remember this strike. This is the one that you and I talked about for ideas. The ogre, he's taken the ogre's eye.
Yep.
And stuck it in a staff. And so now he has a SIVA controlled, a SIVA activate. What do you call it? He has a stick with an ogre eye on it that he can just run around the world or run around the map and just beam you with it.
Yeah.
All the while, this ogre is completely blind. And so he doesn't have a beam attack anymore, but he's completely immune to damage. And he just runs over and just, boom, ground pounds you every single time he can. And the room has, like, nowhere to hide. There's, like, 2 pillars. It's a completely open arena, and the 2 of them are just chasing you around the arena. This is a Nightfall was freaking terrifying. It sucked.
It was
so bad. But yeah, I remember this. This was one of my favorite strikes too, because it showed off, like, what from a developer standpoint, from Bungie's side, looking at it and saying, it showed off, like, hey, we can invent new enemy types. We can have something freaky and something crazy. And again, it was a little bit of that body horror, right? To see this ogre that literally, where his eye was, it wasn't like it was patched over. It was just this sunken, caving in hole in his face. Like, he just had no face. So, I mean, it's hard to imagine, but imagine an ogre with that big purple eye beam area just gone, just completely removed from the body. And now that eye beam thing is stuck on the end of a stick. And this Devil Splicer, I don't want to call him Fallen, but I don't want to call him Eliksni, so we're just going to call him a Devil Splicer. This Devil Splicer is just running around the arena, just beep, 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 beaming the shit out of you with it. Like, it was a truly terrifying thing to see.
Yeah, that strike, I remember really, really thinking it was super cool when I was playing the strike. And then when you play it as a Nightfall, you guys think Light Blade is bad.
It's so hard. We are not lying when we say there's nowhere to hide in this room. There are literally two pillars. There's one on the left and one on the right, and that is it. And these pillars are about the width of the boss, and that is it. So every once in a while, you can kind of get him to move to one side, but as you're getting him to line of sight him, this ogre is chasing you down and just ground pounding you that you can't do anything about. The ogre is completely immune to damage. You just have to take it.
And I want to say he deployed like I think it was Exploder Shanks.
Yeah. Tons of Shanks. Like when you got him to, I want to say it was like 75%. Shanks just started raining down from the sky. Like it was terrifying. It was a genuinely terrifying Nightfall. That was probably, in my opinion, I think that was probably one of the hardest. That one and Brothers, I think, were two of the hardest. Because there's nowhere to go in those arenas. There's completely open arenas.
Yeah. So Saladin has much the same impression that we did, and decides that like, okay, this is gone way too far. It is beyond containment. And so Saladin decides, he makes the executive decision of, because of the history between the Iron Lords and SIVA, he knows
which we'll cover at some point.
Which we will cover at some point. He knows where the main SIVA production engine is. Because that location was the last stand of the Iron Lords. And he, Saladin says, like, the only recourse we have is to just cut it off at its source. It's already out there. We're gonna have to make sure no new SIVA gets introduced into the system, and then that will give us the opportunity to go stamp it out without having to worry about new stuff coming in.
That's still a terrifying thought, though, right? Because like SIVA can just build itself. So like to have a main chamber where it is just being produced and programmed at a base level, it can still, if it being out there, can still program itself and do things on its own.
Mm-hmm.
Like SIVA is such a terrifying thing, and I'm going to spoil a little bit of what we're going to eventually cover someday with the Iron Lords and Rasputin and Fellwinter and all that. At the time that the Devil Splicers took it over, the last command given to SIVA was from Rasputin, and it was 3 words. You remember the 3 words?
I believe it was consume, enhance, replicate.
Yep, that was it. Those are the 3 commands, and then presumably Rasputin locked out all other commands. And so that's the last command given to SIVA, and so that's all it's been doing since that time. And now, granted, we talked about how the Archons, they are the true technical geniuses of the Eliksni people. They are the ones that build the servitors. They're the ones that they maintain the servitors. They really are kind of they're a priest. They're even mentioned. They're Archon priests is what they are. Mm-hmm. In game, and so like they are they're a religious head, they're a technological head, like they really are held in very high esteem. So for them to be able to get hold of this SIVA that's all it has is a programmable thing, and to be able to basically hack it and reprogram it to what they want it to do, and then to start implanting it into other dregs and vandals and whatnot, captains and servitors and shanks and whatnot. It speaks a lot to the Archon's level of intelligence involving technology.
Oh, absolutely. So the Guardians have this new mission from Saladin: go shut off the production engine of SIVA. And so we fight our way through the Plague Lands, eventually coming to a place that is just called Site 6. And walking into the production room of SIVA was such a wild experience.
Was this the mission, or was this the
This
raid?
this was the mission. This was the mission.
This was the mission. Okay. The mission. I never got a chance to run the raid, the Wrath of the Machine raid. And when or if, I'm going to say when because I know they have to.
Oh yeah.
When it comes to D2, I am going to lose my mind in there. But the mission itself, like you said, walking into this production facility was yeah. Go ahead. I'm emotional right now.
So the outside, as you're initially getting into it, it is very Rasputin bunker. It's very you kind of are crawling through tunnels to get to this big cave opening, and you're when I say big, I mean like massive kind of cave
like
structure.
Pyramid ships, massive.
Yeah. And you're fighting off these members of the Devil Splicers as you're trying to climb up these rock outcroppings to get to this giant diamond shaped doorway. Like I said, it's very similar to a Rasputin bunker, and everything on the outside is very clean. It's very like matte black, clean lines. Mm-hmm. It looks like any of like the Seraph vaults.
Yep. Or even the mine lab, the main Rasputin.
Oh yeah.
Back on Hellas Basin. Was it Hellas Basin?
Yeah. I think so. Yeah.
That was North Mars. Yep.
So you see that from the outside, and then you step in across the threshold of this vault of this site. And everything is dark. Everything is like the only light that there is that like that red emergency light kind of vibe. And just crawling across the walls are these red, they look like veins that are just pulsing and wriggling and are just spread across all of the walls and the ceiling and the floor. Essentially, if you are familiar with the Synthosep ornament that is the SIVA, where it's like just the red ropey veins.
Yep.
It was that, but just dialed to
everywhere.
11.
Fucking everywhere.
Everywhere.
And this room, this is the true beginnings of like the horror from Bungie.
Yeah.
Because I remember what's in this room.
So you step in, this is kind of you've crossed the main threshold. You're walking kind of down this long hallway to another door, and you get through that door, and it is what that hallway was, just amped up even more. This is the production facility. This is where SIVA is actually created, and it's just been running presumably on its own for who knows how long. And there are these giant black diamonds that are one suspended in the middle, and there's a couple on the sides, and there's some control stations, and these red veins still spread throughout everything in this kind of spherical room. And something that we mentioned, this was the last stand of the Iron Lords, was on Site 6. The last stand of the Iron Lords was technically in this room. And as you're walking across, the Iron Lords didn't die because they were guardians, and their ghosts presumably were still alive, or were kept alive due to the nature of the final conflict. They were mostly just there to try and seal this room. They were just there to act as the last barrier to prevent SIVA from getting out to the world.
Like a final stand.
Exactly.
Just pray to God this thing doesn't escape.
And so when your guardian attempts to make a change to this engine facility, your eyes are drawn upwards and you see hanging from the ceiling by these red veins, these organic looking, pulsing SIVA veins. The swollen and bloated and changed, but still living bodies of the remaining Iron Lords.
Living's a bit of a stretch here.
Well, as much as they
I
could
don't know
be.
if they were living. From what I remember, their heads had been replaced with like these giant diamond-shaped things, weren't they?
Yes, but you could say the same thing for some of the fallen in
That's true.
the raid. So
That's true.
I guess I'll leave that up to your imagination whether they were or not.
But that's the thing. Like, leave it up to your imagination, and that's where the horror part comes in.
Yeah.
Because it was just freaky. Like, it's freaky. To have this headless thing just come at you. And it wasn't just like one or two. There's like 5 of them.
Yeah, and they are relentless.
That was a fun one. That was a genuinely fun mission. And if I'm not mistaken, that was like the final mission, right? Like that.
Yeah.
That's the whole, like, you take them out, you end I guess you end their lives again, if we want to think of them as being alive.
Yeah.
And shut down the SIVA facility. But yeah, it's just that was a good starter step for a horror type mission from Bungie.
Yeah. So, from the Vanguard's point of view, this mission has been successful. The, site, the plant that creates SIVA has been destroyed, and now we need to deal with the Devil Splicers themselves.
Yeah.
And the Vanguard, give clearance for a raid team, a raid fire team, to be dispatched to attack the Devil Splicers in their lair. And that is the Wrath of the Machine raid. And for those that haven't gone through it, I hope it comes back soon. I'm sure it will, because it is genuinely awesome. You are facing not only the bulk of the Devil Splicer force, but also the bosses here are those that have changed themselves the most, those that have bought into this philosophy of they can make themselves superior via these cybernetic enhancements. Again, anyone that has watched Cyberpunk Edge Runner, there are some parallels being drawn here.
So similar.
But so this raid team invades the Devil Splicer lair, and the very first enemy you come against very first boss, I should say, that you come against is Vizik, the Archpriest, who is second in command to access the Archon. And he tries to prevent you from entering in general, which you are successful in pushing him back, and you're now chasing him through the facility, essentially, culminating in a boss fight where you use a series of essentially bombs against him to force weaknesses in his SIVA, not stasis, in his SIVA shielding. And it gives Guardians the opening to deliver a final blow and defeat him, as well as destroy the areas of the facility that he kind of takes you through on that chase. But you're not done, because he's just second in command. So then the team continues onwards and has what I still think is thematically one of the most wild and awesome encounters in a raid, I would say, to date.
I remember the cutscenes for this thing, like when they were showing it off in the previews, like this thing chasing you down the wall of the Plague Lands. Is that wall part of the Plague Lands, or is that part of the Cosmodrome, or is that part of the? It's surely it's not part of the tower.
No,
it's
not
the main city.
It's not part of the tower. It is, if I recall correctly, it is an old wall of the Cosmodrome. Okay. Similar to the wall that you navigate through on, like, when you're freshly resurrected.
Yeah. When you're
Yep. I think it's just a different piece of that same wall, actually.
Gotcha. That huge machine just chasing you down.
Yeah. So the encounter that we're talking about was lovingly referred to as the Death Zamboni. And
that's so accurate. That's so accurate.
And you would come, your team would come up to the top of this wall, and you'd see, groups of various Devil Splicers, ahead of you across this wall. And the thought was, all right, let's go forward and work on getting those guys. And then you would realize that one side of the wall is getting closer at an accelerating rate. And that there was this giant Mad Max steam powered battering ram that took up the entire width of the wall that was gonna squish you if you didn't do something about it.
It's another one of those, like, you look at it and on the game side of it, you're like, this is terrifying. Like, Jesus Christ, what is this Death Zamboni? But then, like, from a lore standpoint, when you think about it, this is a decently booby trap thing that is also kind of ingenious on the part of the Devil Splicers to build this death machine that literally takes up the entire width of the path that you need to cross through to get into the place, to get to the main Archon, and to just have it steamroll across the top every couple of minutes. We haven't seen anything like it since, bar two things. One is the giant death ball servitor from Scourge of the Past.
That's true.
That's probably that's as far as a raid wise, that's closest. And Trevor.
It really was a giant Trevor.
It was a giant, it really was. Trevor. Not quite as fast though. Like, Trevor is fast.
Yeah, Trevor's booking it.
Trevor is booking it. For those of you that don't know what Trevor is, so there was a mission which actually does kind of relate to this. You get something well, excuse me. Oh, it is very Eliksni driven mission, isn't it?
It is very Eliksni driven mission.
Oh, well then I will sit patiently. Nope. That's a spoiler for later then.
Oh, so we have this giant Death Zamboni trying to run you down, and in classic Guardian fashion, we decide best way to deal with that is to shoot it. And it's
because we don't have thumbs or fingers,
right? Yeah.
If anyone wonders why we're in a raid and we have to shoot things to get them to activate, it's because Guardians don't have thumbs or fingers. They're glued to our guns.
So we are successful in stopping it, and then in a stroke of rare decision making on the part of a Guardian to actually build something, we decide, let's take the parts of this machine that we just broke to save ourselves, and we are now going to commandeer that machine, fix it, and run it the opposite direction so that it can deal with all the fallen between us and their Archon.
Nice.
And it works beautifully.
Jesus Christ. I was super, super under the impression that like the season of the pirate, the season of plunder, was gonna be like a SIVA thing, and that like the raid that came back was gonna be Wrath of the Machine, and then it wasn't, and then it was. I was so convinced that this thing was coming back. I like I said, I personally have never gotten to play this raid. I've watched tons of videos on it. I've watched all sorts of stuff on some special things that are in there that I'm sure we're going to talk about hopefully tonight. Uh, yeah, it's thematically it is one of the very best raids. It really does hit every point perfectly throughout the raid as you're going through these different fights and what SIVA is and what it's doing and what the Devil Splicers are and what their identity is at this point in time in the history of the Eliksni. It really does hit all those points as you're going through the raid.
Yeah. So, needless to say, we've commandeered the Death Zamboni. We have used it to run over all of the remaining fallen on the top of this wall that are trying to get in our way, and we then proceed to drive the Death Zamboni off the edge of the wall, and
we're crazy.
You jump off with it as it plummets down into the lake. I assume that's there. And we jump across to this little island that ends up being where we need to go conveniently, because this island connects to the rest of this facility that the Fallen have inhabited. And we make our way through the facility, and it is very very Braytech at first. You get some of those very clean lines. It's not exactly the same design language as what's in Lake Deepstone Crypt.
Yeah,
but you have
it's similar.
It is similar, and you can definitely see the comparisons. And there's a moment where I don't believe it actually did anything, but people were convinced it would. Similar to the King's Fall basketball court back in D1. I know it's used for the catalyst for touch now, but before it was just an Easter egg. It was just a thing that was there. Similar to that, just a thing that was there. We had the disco room in Wrath of the Machine, and it was this dark room with a line of, I believe it was 9 or maybe 12 glass tiles in the middle of the room that when you touched a tile, it would just have a bunch of LED lights under that tile, like all around the rim of that tile.
Was this not part of the puzzle in there for the God, I don't want to say the name of it because it's going to spoil it. But
it was not part of the puzzle for the gun.
Okay.
And I guess technically, I think that puzzle was actually before this.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah.
You know the puzzle room I'm thinking of, right? Where it's like it's got all the screens in the center of the room.
Yep.
And then like there's like giant cylinders kind of in these weird like angular rows, and then there's 2 screens that are off in 2 different directions, and like it gives you a code in binary, and then you have to jump across the tops of these pillars to activate and like you as you're jumping across have no indication of whether you've done it right or wrong or anything like that. Like maybe a sound, maybe it plays a bing or something like that when you've done it right, but all of that gives you this quest to go get a SIVA gun.
Yeah, and it's actually a SIVA gun that everyone is familiar with a form of it, and that is the Outbreak. I believe
it used to be Outbreak Prime, now Outbreak Perfected.
Yep, that's right. We have the Outbreak Perfected, was previously Outbreak Prime. More or less did the same thing. The effect
Yeah,
is exactly the
yeah.
same, I think, where it gives you those SIVA nanites, but that is
But at
a
D1,
SIVA
like
weapon.
less, I want to say less than like 1% of the population had it. Like
Yeah, because
it was a very low. The puzzle for it was genuinely rough.
it really was.
Like it was a big deal back then. Like if you want a good video to watch, like just go watch how to get Outbreak Prime, not Outbreak Perfected, because that's Outbreak Perfected is the D2 version of it, but Outbreak Prime. Just hit up YouTube to how to get Outbreak Prime, and just watch some of those videos from some of those old puzzles, because like the actual quest that like the puzzle starts the thing, but then like the quest that you follow through the rest of it is really really hyper involved. Like it's like you have to have a team of a hunter, a titan, and a warlock, and they all have to be on the same step as you, and they have to input something to where you can input something, and it's super involved. I remember that one being a really rough one to obtain in D1. I never got it in D1, so but that's a SIVA gun. That's
That is a SIVA
if you want to
gun.
go
Yep.
if you want to go look at SIVA Tech right now, go pull that sucker. If you have it, go pull it out of your vault, go pull it out of your collections, and go shoot it. All those little nanites and stuff that fly around, that's SIVA. We are actively shooting SIVA. The gun itself is still replicating, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, essentially.
But you see, that's what I mean about SIVA Tech. Like, even if you cut it off at the source, if you still have SIVA in your hand, you still have an infinite supply of SIVA, presumably.
I mean,
That's a
is
funky concept.
you could argue the gun evolved itself from
Oh
Prime to
shit.
Perfected.
Oh shit.
So
Because the servitor was
the servitor went
Sepix
from
Prime, and
to
then it was
Perfected.
Sepix Perfected. Oh shit. It's
So,
learning.
you never know.
Well, when I tell you what, when it obtains the level of Ahamkara and it knows it's in a video game and it wants out, then I'll be scared of it.
Yes, then there's a problem. But yeah, so you are either lucky enough to do that puzzle or unfortunately go through those rooms without it. You get to the disco room with the light up floors that don't actually do anything, even though it feels like they should. And you drop down into this space that I'm trying to think of what to compare it to that would be in game now.
I don't know that it's ever been recreated.
I don't know that it
Similarly,
has.
it's very unique.
It is. I guess maybe the closest comparison I could draw is the room on Europa. Again, to avoid any potential spoilers, I suppose. The room on Europa that has the giant head.
Okay. Yeah.
It has some
If all the
similarities
lights
to
were
that.
turned off.
Right. And that's the thing. It is very much, it started that way. It started as a clean Braytech facility room.
Yep.
And what you're greeted to when you get down there is it's not as corrupted. There isn't as much like SIVA vines and veins yet, but it is clearly starting. And we see that this is the seat of power for the Devil Archon Axis, who has turned himself not only into a full cyborg, but also a new production engine for SIVA. So he himself is using his own body as a way of producing more SIVA nanites.
He almost reminds me, like when I've watched that fight and I look at the boss himself, it almost reminds me of like an alien, like aliens versus predator alien, like Queen Brood Mother just like brooding out SIVA, right? Like that's what it reminds me of there, because I want to say he's like half spider tank.
Yep. Yeah, he has these like it's a little different appearance than what we see as spider tanks now, but he's got like that same kind of thing where it's six legs. and they're kind of like diamond shaped legs that he teleports around the room with, and
it totally Taniks totally makes sense now.
Yeah, right. He's just following
Shank Taniks totally just makes sense now. I don't know why I never connected that. But Shank Taniks totally makes sense now at the end of Deepstone Crypt, thinking about this final he's half spider tank. That's what it is. Man, the Eliksni really are that, again, technologically speaking, super advanced. Like,
oh yeah,
to be able to graft a body onto, well, I guess obviously using SIVA with the help of SIVA, but to graft bodies onto walker tanks and giant shanks and whatnot, like, yeah.
So we're facing down Axis, and this fight, I'm not going to go over the whole battle strategy, but this fight is really interesting because throughout the fight, you're having to like gain access to damage him, kind of. There will be different elemental, I think they were shanks that showed up throughout the fight that you had
Shanks
to match up. Were they servitors? Okay.
I think they were servitors because you had a gun and you had to shoot the shield of the servitor.
Yep, you're right.
But the fact that he's just mass producing these servitors on command, essentially.
It definitely seemed like it. Like they were newly minted, essentially.
Yeah.
And you had to match their color to the color of a particular, laser beam weapon to grant yourself access to this buff that then had to be planted on Axis to make him vulnerable to damage. And it had a little bit of this vibe of like you were, by killing things in the right order with the right stuff, you were kind of hacking into this production, this living production system.
Yeah. That's again, watching videos of it, that's what it makes me think of. It makes me think of like he is just actively producing everything in the moment. Like it's not like stuff is being warped in or flown in or anything like that. He's just pumping out servitors and enhanced devil splicers and he's just pumping all this stuff out into this room. And there are tons of shanks in there, and he's just, as fast as they can be built, they're just getting pumped into this room. And then you on the other end are like, okay, I've got to deal with this in certain orders to kind of like hack the system and to get something on him to like pause him for a second to like grab his focus and then start shutting him down.
Yeah. And needless to say, we are successful in doing so. The Braid team puts an end to the Archon Axis. But the Devils were not quite done yet. In their desperation of losing their Archon, the Devil Splicers, and it's going to make a lot more sense now, revive Taniks using SIVA and end up turning him into a cyborg similar to what Axis was. He wasn't grafted onto a spider tank or anything, but he was a machine Eliksni, essentially, or more machine than organic.
It makes even more sense now of how he's able to go from like walking, talking Taniks, slamming Morningstar into Europa, into Tan-Shanks? I don't know. What do you call it? What Taniks? Whatever.
Shanks.
There we go. Shantanks. Name 5 Destiny bosses. Taniks. Okay, I played myself there.
Yep. Needless to say, their plan is uncovered by Varix, who puts the Guardians towards this newly revived version of Taniks, and the Guardians put Taniks down again for not the final time, but we think the final time in that moment, which officially ends the Devil Splicers and the SIVA crisis.
Man. So we've dealt with Taniks. We've dealt with devils. We've dealt with shit. What is there left to deal with?
There's maybe a little bit of House Winter. There are the devils that were not part of the Splicers that are still floating around because there was a fracture in the house there. And there's kings. The remnants
Yeah.
of kings are kind of all that's left right now. And the fallen are really feeling it at this point.
Yeah.
And having no further recourse, the fallen hear a plea from the House of Kings. And that message that goes out is the Kell of the House of Kings telling them, "Thou shalt tell the Eliksni to tear off their banners. Thou shalt tell them that we must all surrender to each other. We must give up on our rivalries, or we will not survive." He has sent this plea out to all of the survivors, all of the remaining people. Give up your house. Give up your rivalry with your neighboring houses, because we will not live. We will not continue unless you can throw all of that aside and join together.
He's just saying to his people, hey, we have to stop. We have to stop fighting each other. We have to stop killing each other. Otherwise, we will go extinct. We will no longer be, and therefore we have to band together and become one people again. We have to become Eliksni again.
Yeah, and I think there's a distinction to be made there, because I don't think he is going so far as to say we need. I don't think he's made the same distinction Varix has. I don't think he thinks in the terms of Fallen and Eliksni as being different things the same way that Varix does. I think, and House of Kings all the way back to Reese, they have always been the ones to come forth and try to cause union between the houses in some way, be it on the battlefield, be it elsewhere. Their main goal has always seemed to be we need to come together, we need to unite. Now he doesn't make any mention, and we'll read some more lore cards about the Kell of Kings. Never is it mentioned about like we need to revive our culture, we need to strive for a greater purpose. I think this call to action and the answer to it is still purely survival based. It is still,
I see what you're saying.
He doesn't care about like we need to come together and reform our culture and our arts and our music and philosophy and understand one another. He's saying we need to stop fighting each other, because otherwise we won't exist tomorrow. And that's kind of,
we die.
Yeah, that's kind of the extent of what his messaging seems to be to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I'm definitely seeing that now.
And many Eliksni agree. They see no other avenue. And so towards the end of Destiny 1, during the Age of Triumph, I may have said Age of Triumph before. What I meant was Rise of Iron at that time. Because this was the Age of Triumph, was this last season.
I think they had 2 Triumph deals there. I think they had one right before Rise of Iron, and then they had Rise of Iron, and then they had like the Age of Triumph. Like
that could
I want to say that, because I swear there was like a mini one before Rise of Iron, and then after Rise of Iron, the summer before D2 came out, was like the final like age of triumph, like celebrate Destiny 1 before all of you migrate over to Destiny 2.
Yeah, and it was during this time, this kind of final, mini expansion slash season, I suppose, of Destiny 1, that we had a few missions where we saw just piles of Eliksni banners of various houses and armor with the emblems of houses, and text and scrolls and all sorts of things that were symbols of a particular fallen house had been left abandoned in piles, set aflame, and they were just burning when our guardian arrived. There were no Eliksni left. They had all abandoned these strongholds, these homes that they had built, with their houses that were their families in a lot of ways. And they had left it all behind and burned the evidence, burned their past.
I was going to say, so is this like the final ending of all the houses?
The final ending of all the houses that we knew of in D1.
Holy shit.
They had been brought to the point of desperation without recourse, that they just burned it all down and left.
Like even kings, like the one calling everyone in, did they even like burn their own banners and say there are no more houses? We are one Eliksni?
Yes and no. They all came together, including the House of Kings, under a different banner. So the banner of the House of Kings was not used. The leadership structure of the House of Kings was still somewhat recognized, though. I think mostly because they were the only ones with leaders left.
Yeah. But they didn't like present themselves as like, I am the Kell of Kings, like I am the Archon of Kings. It was just like, hey, I'm an Archon. I'm a Kell. I guess if you are a Kell, you are the Kell of Kings. But
right.
Like it seems to me like during that time, like that was it. Like that was the end of all houses. Like there is no, like, essentially like before, where we said there are 3 houses and a dude. There are now just Eliksni and a dude that happens to be the only remaining house.
So they do form under a new house name.
Okay.
And there is a leader, although I don't know that he's ever called a Kell, and it is not the former Kell of Kings. The new house is called the House of Dusk, and it is the primary house that we see in Destiny 2. And the Kell of the House of Dusk, or at least the one calling the shots, is none other than Aldrin Sov.
Dude, that just makes sense. That just makes sense. When Mara says it herself, Aldrin has finally found his people. That just makes sense. That I don't know why it didn't make sense until like just now. Like I knew that's where he had. I knew that whole thing had happened, right? Like I knew Aldrin had become the quote unquote Kell or leader of House Dusk, but it just makes sense.
So we see this happening, and we get a little bit of understanding of why Aldrin. In the lore card we've read before as part of our History of the Awoken series, but it's relevant here too. And that is from the book, The Forsaken Prince, chapter called Kings. And that goes like this. When at last they drag him before the Kell, he has already been transformed by weeks of abuse, weeks of beatings, and forced runs and animal pen conditions. The mighty Kell of Kings tells him clearly but not concisely, what he thinks of him. Prince Aldrin of a ruined house, lesser of two siblings, bested by Skolas, blinded by Varix less than Dreg, squanderer of fleets, last of the awoken nobility, last of his kind. When Aldrin looks up at him, he does not even need to speak the truth. The Kell of Kings has named Aldrin, and in doing so, it has named itself. The broken ruler of a broken house, the last Kell. You can do what I cannot, the Kell tells Aldrin. You broken, beaten thing. You have no pride, so you will lose nothing when you give the word that must be given. It is twilight for the fallen, and we must lay our banners down. And to the groaned and growled protests of its court, the Kell of Kings kneeled to Aldrin. I bow to thee, it says, for in thy downfall and disgrace thou bearest the weakness we cannot. Thou shalt tell the Eliksni to tear off their banners. Thou shalt tell them that we must all surrender to each other. We must give up on our rivalries, or we will not survive. Wilt thou do this for one dying people, prince of another? He will do it. He will gain soldiers and ships and resources to begin the search. He found them, he himself, by risking everything and surviving, as he always does. And that's the end of that lore reading.
I mean, the Eliksni and the Awoken are so intertwined. Like, you can never bring up one without bringing up the other. It's very hard. There's so many points where their paths cross, and like I said, I like that last little bit there. The from the people of a dying house to the prince of another dying species. And because I mean, this is post Taken War. The Awoken forces have been decimated. All the different houses. I mean, we've just ran through all the houses like they're nothing. Like the only other person is and I love how the Kell mentions him, Varix less than Dreg. Like that's a true insult in the Eliksni. Like that's a genuine, like, they do not like him at all. Which is odd to think of, right? Like House Judgment used to be like that was the law of the land, and now the one remaining one is like, screw that guy. We don't want anything to do with him.
Yeah, well, he betrayed wolves from their point of view.
Yep. So, but yeah, it's to look at Aldrin and see in him what could be done. Like he has no pride, so he has nothing left to lose. Whereas like a Kell is again, it's a prideful thing to be a Kell, right? Like that's the head of the house, the head of the family, the head of the everything. You're responsible for everyone underneath you. And so for a Kell to ask for help is definitely a sign of weakness. And if the Kell is weak, the house is weak. But then to look at Aldrin and say, hey, obviously you're kind of a dying breed. Like there's not much Awoken left. Come join us. Come lead us. Like if you fail, sucks to suck. We're a fallen race. We're dying anyway. Like we're not gonna be worse off if you fail. But if you succeed, now we have a uniting force. Now we have a uniting voice. Now we have somebody to get behind. Now we have a leader. Now we can unite. So it's a I think it's a win-win all the way around. And again, I don't know why it just didn't it sort of made sense before, but now it like really makes sense knowing how far the fallen people or the Eliksni people have fallen to see Uldren as their uniting leader in House of Dusk.
I think this is also because we've seen House of Kings be very politically adept before.
Oh yeah.
With how they
Oh
kind
yeah.
of manipulate the other houses to do what they want. Oh, House Devils, you have the most experience attacking the city. How about you lead the charge for Twilight Gap? That kind of thing.
How much you be up front?
Right. And I think it's a similar situation here where the Kell of Kings understands that for him to ask all other houses to burn their banners, to abandon their family names and form under one house, that if he were to try and form them under himself, under the House of Kings, under the Kell of Kings, that is a lot of hypocrisy on his part.
Right. Right. That's like that really much is like, hey, you want us to all give up, but you don't want to give up your title? Okay, F you guy.
Right. So he's seeing Uldren here as a neutral third party, as I will also abandon the name of kings. Like we will burn the banner of the House of Kings, and you will be the new, Kell of Dusk, Kell of House Dusk. Because he recognizes him as as a leader of another race that is quickly running out of options, and sees him as maybe a kindred spirit. And unfortunately for him, Uldren is batshit crazy at this point.
he's been this is during the time where Uldren has been picking at his eye.
Yes.
Right, like this is he's gone completely off the deep end. He's lost Mara. He knows his sister is dead, like he knows all of his people is dead, but this corrupted Riven has been whispering to him.
Yeah, and he sees this
for some time.
He sees this as the opportunity. He sees this as this is my army. This will be the people I use to get what I need. And so where the kings and the Eliksni see a potential savior, and honestly, he could have been if he hadn't been corrupted. Like Uldren, normal Uldren, could have been a leader.
Pre-Black Garden.
Yeah, he could have been a Eliksni leader. He honestly could have become their Kell of Kells. But at this point in time, he was corrupted, and he was just using them for his own ideas.
God, that's a bummer.
But so the House of Dusk rises under the leadership of Prince Uldren. And the last thing we're gonna go over tonight is that there was the rise of another group of Eliksni that were not the House of Dusk, but were also being driven to like desperation. They needed to go somewhere. And so a certain Eliksni member on the Tangled Shore invited all that would listen with opened arms. And we're going to read the lore card from the weapon, the Ether Doctor. And it goes like this. Here's is my offer. The spider folds both sets of arms over his thorax, leaning back in his throne. For the martially inclined, bodyguards, enforcers, and such, I will provide 1 kilogram of ether for 1 day's work. By day, I mean half of 1 30-hour cycle. That's the schedule I keep. If you suffer an injury in my service, you will still be paid for your days of recovery. Sibilant murmurs of surprise echo around the spider's chamber. The dregs and vandals gathered before him are trying to figure out the catch. Spider allows himself a luxuriant smile. For those who prefer a more freelance lifestyle, you will find me an enthusiastic collector of salvage and secrets. My prices are posted on the local network in the last 40 orbits. I have changed them only twice. He pauses to let the Eliksni tune into his network and let the prices listed sink in. The hisses of joy are even louder this time. You are used to competing for the favors of your Kel. Let me make one thing clear. I am no Kel, and I do not waste my favor on you. Honor your side of the deal, and I shall honor mine. No more, no less. Now, Spider claps his hands, relishing the thoroughly human uselessness of the gesture. Get to work. And that's the end of that lore card.
Man. Old Rackus himself. Claimed his own bounty and merchandise, yeah, merchandise, yeah.
He's setting himself up as a as the mobster. He's
as the black market mobster.
He's seeing a power vacuum. He's seeing desperation in all of these Eliksni that are abandoning their houses, and those that don't want to, throw in with the previous House of Kings and Aldrin want a place to go, and Spider's saying, hey, fair wages.
Yeah.
If you come do what I ask you, I'm going to pay you real well. I'm going to give you essentially like paid sick leave.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to be under my, organization and you want to be freelance, I pay pretty well for that too. So come work for me.
It's such a smart move on his part, right?
Oh, it is.
It's a genuinely and it's funny too, because I look at Spider at this point in time as having so many interactions with humans that he's really started to pick up on some of that stuff. Like I don't know that there was any type of like black market amongst the Fallen before, but like this is truly the beginning of like a mobster black market thing happening of like, but like it's funny because when we think of like American mobsters, right? You think of guys like Al Capone, right?
Yeah.
Who never got arrested. Well, okay, he was arrested, but he was arrested on tax evasion. Of all things,
yeah,
tax evasion. That's what he was arrested on. And if memory serves me right, I believe he served time at Alcatraz, right?
That sounds correct, but I'm not up to date on my Capone,
I don't remember. Alcatraz is another like fun little thing that I like studying outside of like, history of the world during World War I and World War II. But yeah, so I mean it, and to be like, and for Spider to be like, yeah, if you don't want to be part of the old ways, like he's very much setting himself up as like this new wave, right? Like this new wave of Eliksni of, yeah, we're all going to be equals. You're going to get paid. You're going to work for it, but you're going to get paid. You're going to get treated fairly. If you injure yourself, I'll even pay for your time off. Get better. Come right back to work for me. If you don't want to be under me, if you don't want to work directly for me or have any type of direct contract or anything, here's my bounty board. Go check it out. I've literally changed it twice in the last 40 years. That's it. Like it's such a smart move on his part to have I hesitate to say it, but a viable out for all the Eliksni that are just like, well, this whole idea of Kells isn't working out, and the whole idea of houses isn't really working out anymore, so why don't we try something new? it's man, Spider is
Yeah, and he is buying their loyalty hand over fist.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Compared to the old, ration system of, well, you gotta get X amount of kills before you can get enough ration to, go from Dreg to Vandal. He's saying, like, if you get me an item of this value or work this, this much, he's guaranteeing you a sustainable, sustenance.
Yeah.
He's purchasing people's loyalty with food, essentially.
Yeah. But in such a indirect way. Like, it's so
it's brilliant. Yeah.
It's so brilliant. Like, I don't know. Spider's not such a bad guy.
Say he at least pays his workers well, supposedly.
That's what I mean. Paid sick leave, man. That's sometimes you got to argue for that shit. Like, he's actively promoting it. Like, yeah, paid sick leave, man.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. So that brings us essentially to the end of D1.
Yep.
I know you said that was our last thing tonight. So I guess next time we'll pick up on the beginning of D2.
Yeah, and say that was the end of D1 and kind of just barely starting to get into D2. So we'll be picking up at the beginning of Destiny 2 and kind of the exploits of the House of Dusk and see where that takes us from there.
Nice. Well, I don't think we have any shout-outs this week. This is the first week in, hell, what, 6, 7, 8 months?
Yeah, it's definitely been a while, which is okay. And say no specific shout outs to
we do have
to
some
bring
fun
up
metrics
today. But yeah, we do have some really awesome metrics. Just because we don't have any new reviews or Twitter comments or anything that are going to be highlighted today doesn't mean that we aren't still super appreciative of what you guys are doing, and that is listening.
Absolutely.
And say we crested over 60K before our recording of this on Friday the 4th.
60,000 listens. 60,000 downloads and listens across 10 months.
Yeah, about 10 months.
That's fucking amazing. That is fucking amazing. You guys are awesome. You guys are freaking awesome. Stay awesome. Stay awesome, everyone.
Yeah, we're looking at the numbers before the show, and it's been a incredible ride these last couple months, especially. We had over 11,000 downloads just in the month of October, just last month, which is
awesome, insane
considering we were looking at like 6,000 3 months ago, and 2,000 a month or two before that. So like, regardless,
completely destroyed our 50,000 listens and downloads goal. We had hoped at the beginning of this year, we had hoped that by the end of this year we were going to hit 50,000, and the fact that it's 60,000 and it's literally the 4th day of November. We got 2 whole months. I mean, I know we've got some break times that we're going to get in there for Thanksgiving and Christmas, but yeah, you guys are awesome.
Yes.
Stay awesome. Just stay awesome. We love it.
Absolutely. So thank you all so very much for enjoying what we do enough to keep coming back. And, as some of you have said in comments and reviews and such, that, spreading the word. There's no higher form of compliment than telling other people about, that you enjoy what we do and trying to share that with your friends. So thank you.
Absolutely. Well, Miss, you want to let them know where to find us?
Yeah. So if you are wondering where our shout outs come from, and say you feel strongly enough to want to leave a review of some sort, You can do so on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, although they only let you do a number of stars, or Audible, or if you just want to say hello or ask a question about something we brought up in one of our lore talks. You can do so on our Twitter, which is at Myths and Stories, Z in Stories, spelled the same as the name of the show. We check that periodically and always like to hear from you guys, and you may hear yourself on a shout out some night.
Yeah. Well, I guess I gotta give my thanks out. I don't. Maybe Spider's the one to thank this time for giving the Eliksni an alternative, albeit in a very what would you call it? Self-propelling way. Like, yeah, he just works smarter, not harder, right?
Right.
Merchandising. Hey, Mithrax. Yeah. I love that line that he says during the current season of Plunder when he's jabbing Mithrax in the side. He's like, "Hey, Mithrax!" Like he really throws in the th instead of the s. And even in if you've got your subtitles turned on, it'll show Mithrax in quotation marks. Like, I love that. Alrighty. Well, thank you, Spider, for having an alternative for the Eliksni outside of House Dusk. All right. Well, anything else, Myth?
No, that'll do it.
Alrighty. Well, then from all of us lore nerds to all of you Guardians out there, we'll see you next week.